Most people think getting rich all at once would solve their life. I think it would expose it. If I dropped a large pile of money into your lap tonight, your first danger would not be taxes, Wall Street, or some genius investment you fail to spot. Your first danger would be pressure. Sudden money creates pressure, the way deep water creates pressure. And if you rise too fast without passing through the right chambers, you do not arrive free. You arrive broken. That is why I want you to stop thinking about sudden wealth as a celebration and start thinking about it as an airlock. An airlock exists for one reason. It allows a person to move from one environment to another without being torn apart by the difference in pressure. That is what a large inheritance, a lawsuit settlement, a business sale, a lottery hit, or any other windfall does to a human being. It changes your financial environment faster than your psychology, your habits, your relationships, your identity, and your judgment can adapt. The money is not the prize. The money is the pressure change. And most people do not lose sudden wealth because they are stupid. They lose it because they open the hatch too fast. They tell too many people. They spend too quickly. They quit the structure that kept them stable. They confuse relief with wisdom. They try to look rich before they have learned how to stay rich. They turn a blessing into a leak, then into a flood, then into a wreck. You must understand something brutal. A person who has never built wealth does not magically become a steward of wealth the day the money arrives. He usually becomes a more heavily funded version of his old habits. If he was impulsive before, now he is impulsive with more zeros. If he was insecure before, now he buys larger proof. If he was lonely before, now he attracts more expensive liars. If he had poor boundaries before, now he becomes a public water fountain for everyone with a sad story and a fake opportunity. That is why I do not care how much money arrived. I care whether you know how to move through the airlock. The first seal is silence. If money hits your life suddenly, your mouth becomes your biggest liability. Most people think the first instinct should be celebration. I think the first instinct should be containment. You do not announce pressure changes while you are still trying to survive them. The minute people know you have money, your life stops being interpreted. Honestly. Every invitation changes. Every request changes. Every relative reveals a new emergency. Every old classmate suddenly has a brilliant business. Every romantic weakness in your life becomes more expensive. Privacy is not secrecy for the sake of drama. Privacy is structural defense. A fortune that remains quiet still belongs to you. A fortune that becomes social begins to belong to the crowd. When you tell the world, you create a market around yourself. Expectations appear. Emotional claims appear. Manipulation appears. You think you are sharing good news. What you are actually doing is inviting demand to form around your capital before you have decided what your capital is for. The second seal is debt extinction. If you suddenly become rich, the first money that leaves your hands should not go toward a celebration. It should go toward killing any debt that has a claim on your future breathing room. Debt is pressure inside the chamber. It reduces your ability to think. It makes your decisions emotional. It gives every dollar you own a silent enemy. I am not talking about creating a new life. I am talking about removing old chains. That means high-interest consumer debt first. That means the ugly balances, the lines that charge you rent for being alive, the obligations that make every month begin in defense. If the money is large enough and the structure makes sense, you simplify what can be simplified. But this is where people make a very common mistake. They pay off some debt, feel clean for the first time in years, then immediately begin manufacturing new debt because they suddenly feel invincible. That is not wealth. That is a costume change. The purpose of paying debt is not to create room for larger toys. It is to remove drag from your life. If you clear the runway and then roll a truck onto it, you are not getting wiser. You are rebuilding your own cage with better upholstery. The third seal is routine. Do not quit your job the moment the money appears. Most people hate hearing that because they imagine sudden wealth as a right to theatrical liberation. They want the speech, they want the door slam, they want the fantasy of finally saying what they always wanted to say. But what you call freedom in that moment is often just an emotional spasm. I have watched enough people to know this. A job is not merely a paycheck. It is also rhythm, structure, identity, social contact, and resistance against drift. If you remove all of that on the same week your financial reality changes, you do not create peace. You create vacuum. Vacuum is dangerous. A human being without structure, with too much unearned confidence and too much new cash, usually does not become philosophical. He becomes expensive. He starts shopping for identity. He starts treating boredom as an emergency. He starts spending to create the feeling of motion, because real purpose has not been rebuilt yet. Keep the routine, at least for a while. Let the balance of power shift quietly inside you. The real gift of money is not that you can storm out. The real gift is that you no longer have to bow. There is a profound difference between quitting in excitement and staying in calm, because now you know you could leave. The first is emotional. The second is power. That is the beginning of dignity. The fourth seal is time. You must let the money sit. Not because money grows by sleeping in a bank account for a few months, but because you need time to watch your own psychology reveal itself. When people come into sudden money, they usually believe their first plan is their best plan. It rarely is. The first plan is often just the first desire that rose to the surface after years of suppression. Give that desire time to die. Then watch the second desire rise. Let that one die too. After some months, you begin to notice something important. The fantasies change. The car that looked essential starts to look childish. The giant house starts to look like a tax bill wearing makeup. The startup your cousin swore was a guaranteed winner starts to smell like desperation with a logo. The charity request that once felt noble starts to look like emotional extortion. Time is not wasting opportunity. Time is filtering noise. The impatient person thinks action proves intelligence. I have made a life proving the opposite. Often the highest return move in the early phase is simply not moving, while your mind catches up with your balance sheet. The fifth seal is education. If money arrives before understanding arrives, the money is in danger. A fool with more capital does not become an investor. He becomes a larger target. That is why I would much rather see a newly wealthy person spend time learning the basic grammar of wealth than spend $1 trying to look like a sophisticated allocator. You do not need to become a genius. You need to stop being available for every smooth talker, every salesman in an expensive suit, every trendy asset, every family scheme, and every emotional impulse dressed up as generosity. You must learn simple things first. What is the difference between income and principal? What spending rate can your capital actually support? What tax structure matters? What risk you understand and what risk you do not? What liquidity means? What recurring costs do to a fortune? What inflation does while people are busy admiring nominal numbers? What happens when you own an asset you cannot explain in plain English? This is not academic. This is body armor. Financial literacy is what keeps a sudden windfall from becoming a public autopsy. The sixth seal is continuity of trusted systems. When people inherit money from someone disciplined, they often make an arrogant mistake. They assume the new money proves they are now ready to redesign everything. They fire advisors, move accounts, chase lower, fee promises from strangers they barely know, or hand responsibility to someone more charming than competent. That is a vanity move. I am not telling you to trust every advisor forever. I am telling you to respect the fact that a functioning system already produced a result. If a careful person left behind a structure, a team, a process, or a philosophy that preserved and grew wealth. Your first job is to understand that structure before you start replacing parts. Most people reverse that order. They change before they understand. That is how money drifts into the hands of people who specialize in meeting the newly rich before the newly rich develop defenses. Continuity first, judgment second, changes later. The seventh seal is comfort, not theater. Use the money to make your life safer, cleaner, saner. Do not use it to audition for another social class. That distinction matters more than people think. A paid-off home that you can actually carry is comfort. A mansion in a neighborhood built around status tournaments is theater. Reliable transportation is comfort. A fleet of ego-driven liabilities is theater. Financial breathing room is comfort. Lifestyle cosplay is theater. The trouble with rich-looking decisions is that they create recurring costs, which begin behaving like hidden employees. Property taxes report for duty every year. Maintenance reports for duty. Insurance reports for duty. Security, landscaping, upgrades, repairs, expectations, family assumptions, social comparison, all of it reports for duty, and soon the money that was supposed to create freedom is working overtime just to finance the image of freedom. Do not do that to yourself. The money did not arrive to upgrade your costume. It arrived to improve your margin of safety. The eighth seal is boundary enforcement. The newly rich almost always underestimate this part. They think the danger is the market. Often the danger is their own phone. The request begins slowly. A loan here, a bridge loan there, a small investment, a favor, a partnership, a chance to get in early, a family emergency, a wedding, a tuition gap, a friend with tears, a sibling with indignation, someone who says he does not want a handout, only a shot. You must learn a hard sentence. Your windfall is not a community well. Once you start punching holes in your safety net for every person with a story, it stops being a safety net. Worse, you create an incentive system around yourself. People begin approaching you not as a human being but as a private treasury. Your relationship, the people who do not receive money resent you. The people who do receive money often come back because the first rescue taught them the wrong lesson. That is why I would rather disappoint someone with a boundary than destroy both of us with a bad rescue. Do not lend casually. Do not invest in friends casually. Do not fund businesses casually. Do not mistake guilt for morality. Wealth requires the ability to say no before the damage is visible. The ninth seal is distrust of sudden entrepreneurship. A great many people receive money and immediately decide it is time to become a founder, a visionary, a backer of dreams. They confuse access to capital with competence in capital allocation. Those are not the same thing. Business is hard enough when you have spent years earning pattern recognition. It is far harder when you are floating on the emotional high of a windfall and looking for a new identity to wear. A person who has not run a business but suddenly has money is in one of the most dangerous psychological positions in the world. He sees possibility everywhere and fragility nowhere. That is a terrible combination. I would much rather see you preserve a fortune than try to double it through ventures you barely understand. There is a time for enterprise, but enterprise built on emotional impatience is often just expensive self-deception. Before you buy yourself a company, learn whether you can even sit still with cash for 12 months without doing something foolish. That test alone will tell you how ready you are. The 10th seal is legal and social realism. Money changes the incentives around you. That is not cynicism. That is arithmetic. Once people know you have assets, some will want part of them, some through charm, some through guilt, some through business, some through romance, some through lawsuits, some through stories so polished they almost make your own common sense feel cruel. That means the responsible person does not become paranoid. He becomes prepared. Your documents matter. Your advisors matter. Your legal structure matters. Your insurance matters. Your habits matter. Your emotional discipline matters. You must understand that wealth attracts both admiration and extraction. And the more sudden the wealth, the more unprepared the recipient usually is for the extraction side. That is why I want your life quieter, cleaner, more documented, more deliberate, and less showy than before. Quiet money sleeps better because quiet money gives fewer people a reason to circle. The 11th seal is health. Now that the money has arrived, one of the smartest things you can do is become harder to break. Get checked. Fix what you have ignored. Improve the machine that carries your mind. People treat healthcare like a luxury until they finally have money. Then they still postpone it because consumption is more glamorous than prevention. That is backwards. The purpose of money is not merely to lengthen your list of pleasures. It is to improve your odds of actually being alive, mentally sharp, and physically capable enough to enjoy a long future. What good is a fortune if your body is collapsing under old negligence, bad food, exhaustion, untreated issues, or a mind that cannot tolerate calm without reaching for another stimulus. Sudden wealth should not turn you into a peacock. It should turn you into a better maintained machine. The 12th seal is spending discipline. I want you to think of the fortune as a tree, not a pile. A pile invites grabbing. A tree invites stewardship. If the capital is invested sensibly, it can produce a stream. That stream is what you are allowed to enjoy. The trunk is what you protect. The tragedy of the newly rich is that they see principal and income as the same thing. They start cutting branches, then carving at the trunk. Then one winter, they realize the firewood is gone and so is the tree. That is why a disciplined spending rule matters. Call it 5%, call it a ceiling, call it a governance rule, call it a throttle. I do not care what name you use. I care that you understand the concept. If the money is to last, you cannot behave as if every dollar that appears in the account is permission to redesign your identity. Income is permission. Principle is responsibility. Children should not be raised inside the blast radius of unmanaged money. A fortune can create security for a family, or it can create softness, entitlement, comparison, confusion, and a long decay of hunger. Money that is not governed usually does not liberate the next generation. It disorients it. That is why smart families build structures, trusts, guardrails, delayed access, clear values, educational expectations, and an understanding that capital exists to strengthen character and options. Not replace effort. I do not want your children protected from work. I want them protected from distortion. There is a big difference. The 14th seal is marital discipline. This one should be obvious, but money has a strange way of making weak character feel temporarily justified. Attention rises, temptation rises, vanity rises, the belief that consequences are manageable rises. That is a costly illusion. A fortune should increase the quality of your judgment, not widen the area in which you can self-destruct. Betrayal becomes more expensive when assets are larger, but the worst cost is not legal. The worst cost is strategic. You take a stabilizing partnership and turn it into chaos right when calm matters most. You introduce distrust into the same house that is supposed to become the control center of your future. Do not do that. If money enters your life, use it to reduce stress inside your household, not introduce a new category of stupidity. The 15th seal is safe play. There are seasons in life when aggression pays. Sudden wealth is usually not one of them. You do not need a miracle after a windfall. The miracle already happened. What you need now is conservation, sobriety, and enough humility to understand that the law of large numbers is not a toy. When luck arrives violently, a wise person does not assume he has been chosen for permanent exemption from consequences. He assumes the opposite. He assumes this is exactly the moment to become more conservative, less performative, and more deliberate than the people around him. Play safe because your job is not to impress anyone. Your job is to convert one event into permanent advantage. Now let me tell you the hidden mechanism beneath all of this. Most people think sudden money is a financial event. It is not, it is an identity event. You wake up with the same insecurities, the same appetites, the same friends, the same unfinished wounds, the same need for approval, the same fantasies about what success should look like. But now those inner forces have capital behind them. That is why some people lose fortunes so quickly. The money did not destroy them. It financed the parts of themselves they never learned to govern. That is the real trap. Not the market, not the advisor, not the tax code. You, if you still believe money is for proving things, you will spend to prove. If you still believe love can be purchased, you will spend to attract. If you still believe your old pain deserves compensation, you will spend to soothe. If you still believe rich means visible, you will spend to perform. And in every case, the windfall becomes a delivery mechanism for your old psychology. That is why I want you to build a new definition of rich. Rich is not having a louder life. Rich is having lower pressure. Rich is fewer forced decisions. Rich is the ability to ignore fools. Rich is the ability to walk away from bad deals, bad people, bad work, and bad timing. Rich is sleeping without the silent arithmetic of fear running all night in your skull. Rich is a house that does not own you. Rich is a family structure that does not leak. Rich is money that grows quietly while your ego stays hungry for discipline instead of applause. Rich is optionality. That is the word I would carve into the wall of the airlock. Optionality. If sudden money enters your life and all you create is a bigger fixed cost life, you are not richer. You are just more decorated. But if the money gives you time, margin, bargaining power, privacy, emotional calm, and the ability to make cleaner decisions, then even a fortune that looks modest from the outside has transformed your life correctly. I do not want you drunk on abundance. I want you steady inside it. That is why I would spend the first phase doing almost nothing visible. I would make the private moves. I would eliminate poisonous debt. I would preserve my routine. I would study. I would assess the systems already in place. I would improve comfort without stepping onto the treadmill of public luxury. I would tighten boundaries. I would refuse bad loans, bad partnerships, and ego ventures. I would strengthen health, law, documents, and insurance. I would establish a spending rule. I would protect the children from distortion. I would guard the marriage. I would play safe. And then only then would I begin letting the wealth express itself, not through noise, through architecture. The wrong way to use a windfall is to buy a new life in public. The right way is to build a stronger life in private. There is one more brutal truth I want to leave with you. A great many people dream about sudden money because they are tired. They want rescue. They want release. They want the story where one event arrives and all pressure disappears. But if you are not careful, sudden money does not remove pressure. It merely changes its shape. The bills may go down, but the stakes go up. The labor may go down, but the consequences of foolishness rise. The choices become wider. But the penalties for self-deception become more expensive. That is why the person who survives sudden money is rarely the one who gets most excited by it. It is the one who respects it. Respect means you do not worship the money. You manage the pressure. You pass through one chamber at a time. You do not fling the hatch open because you finally can. You test the seals. You check your oxygen. You move slowly enough that your inner world has time to adapt to your outer world. And when you finally step through to the other side, you do not arrive looking richer than everyone else. You arrive harder to control. That is the final test. If money entered your life tonight, would it make you louder or freer? Would it make you easier to flatter or harder to manipulate? Would it make you look rich or become durable? Would it buy you status or buy back your time? Would you cut down the tree for one warm season? Or would you protect the roots so your family can live under its shade long after you are gone? That is the door in front of you. On one side is display, leakage, ego, pressure, and the fast decay that ruins people who mistake windfalls for identity. On the other side is privacy, structure, discipline, stewardship, and a low-pressure life built on capital that outlives your impulses. Choose carefully, because sudden money is not asking whether you deserve it. It is asking whether you can survive it.